Hello class, it's Professor Gabor. Um, I've got my Excel kind of downloaded and on my desktop, and I'm going to open it to a blank presentation. And hopefully you watched the other videos. There's a lot of video watching in this class. So I'm going to open up a blank presentation. There we go. And let me make it the size of my recording window. There we go. And maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger so you can see better. And like we said, this is a blank sheet. I want to title this slide or this workspace, because if I want to add another worksheet, I just click on a plus down here and it adds another worksheet. And they're named cleverly, sheet 1, sheet 2, and if I open another one, it's sheet 3, and if I don't like sheet 3 because it's before sheet 2 and I want them in order, I can do that. But maybe I go back to sheet 1 and I don't want to call it sheet 1. I want to call it pet example chapter 1. Okay. As we said in class, and if you've seen in the videos, the rows are named after famous numbers. The columns are named after famous letters. So B14, that's highlighted here, is basically called a cell. B14 is listed right there what it is. I can do a variety of things. One thing I wanted to do was, we took a survey in class, so I'm using different data here, but it's saying the number of pets owned. And then I want to say, call it frequency. How many people said? And I have the numbers. We can own 0 pets, 1 pet, 2 pet, 3 pets, 4, 5, 6. And the frequency I spent all day surveying all my neighbors. Actually, I didn't. I made these numbers up. Let's say in my little survey, 45 people said they had 0 pets. 38 people said they had 1 pet. 23 people said they had 2 pets. 17 people said they had 3 pets. 1 person had 2 pets. 2 people had 5 pets. 1 people have 6 pets. Any more than 6 pets, I figured you were owning livestock, not pets. You belonged on a farm. Even though that's a joke more than anything else. But let's say this is my data. Well, the data is kind of organized here, but I really want to highlight the headers. I want to left justify it. And I really, if I wanted to, number of pets owned, I could go up here, grab the right-hand side of the column and move it over, or I could double click on it and it actually right sizes it to the largest thing. Number of pets owned, but I'd rather have that text wrapped. So I'll go up here where it says wrap text, I'll hit that, and then I'll close it up a little bit. And then since I can't see the other stuff, I double click on the bottom end of the 5 row, and this happens. Now I want to calculate relative frequency. So maybe what I'll do here, since it's going across, I'm going to wrap that text. I'm going to right justify it. And then I want to have cumulative relative frequency. Boy, is that a mouthful. And again, I want to wrap the text there. And I want to right justify it. Well, there we have it. I'm putting together a table. First thing I want to do is type total. And when I want to total something, I have this thing called auto sum. First of all, as we said in class, I could do equal to, and that lets me the cell know Excel know that I'm going to do some calculations there. And then I can move my cursor around. I want to add that number plus that number plus that number plus, so I can either scroll it or just click on the cell I want to use, that number plus that number. And I get 126 people in my little poll. But boy, that was a lot of typing, and Excel is all about shorthands. So the way to shorthand that, rather than here's a formula up here that is adding all those numbers, what I really want to do is say equal, and here's auto sum. And I want to take the sum of all of those things. And it automatically goes up to the alphanumeric header and says, is this what you want to do? So I could do that. Oops. But let's say I didn't do that and I want to just go up here and click on 45 and click and drag down to there. And now I say enter, and I get what? I get 127. I had 126 before. Did I change one of the numbers? 38, 23, 17, 121. Oh, I must not have included the 6 before. No, owning 6 pets. So this is cleaner. You're less likely to make mistakes. I'll center this. I'm going to bold these because they're footers. And I'm going to bold these because they're header. And I'm going to bold a couple more because I know I'm going to add some more columns. Okay. Relative frequency. Well, this, as we said, is equal to 45 right there divided by 127, the total. And it gives me this long number, 0.3543307. I don't need all those decimal places. If I was going to leave it as a number, I might only have 3 decimal places, 0.354 or 35%, but maybe I want to have it 35% with 1 decimal place. They always say to include 1 more decimal place than the raw data is. So number of pets owned is 0, the frequency is 45, so I can do that. Now I want to copy this all the way down, as we said, to here, but I keep getting division by 0 because if I look here and I say I'm dividing 45 by 127, that's what I want. But if I go to the next one and see what it did, it moved down to 38. It's like it moved C6 to C7, but it also moved C13 to C14. I really want, if I want, I can just move it physically up there and say that way. Now I could do that for every one, or I can say, you know, listen, as I copy this down, I don't want you to cycle it for each row. So I can put a $sign between the C and the 13. That means as I cycle down, don't change that number, 127. I want to use that everywhere. So if I do this, it goes down and tells me my percentages. Isn't that awesome? Now we said cumulative relative frequency too. Let me make this a little bit bigger. I'm sure you're having a hard time seeing it. I'll make it smaller maybe when I do the graphs. Here's another case. Well, cumulative relative frequency, at 0, it's exactly what it was. So I just copied that over. What did I do? I just said equals, and then I clicked on 35.4, and then it says, so it says equals D6, so that changed. Now I want to make it equal to the previous one plus the next relative frequency. And so if I copy this down, because there's no need to, I don't need to anchor any of those things. I want it to cycle up 1 each time I pull it down. It adds up to 100%. One way of looking at the cumulative relative frequency is it's the number at, the cumulative relative frequency of 1 pet is the number of people that own 1 or less pets. 83.5 is the number of people that own 2 or less pets. And if you look at that, if I add these all up, it comes out to be 96.9%, which is what this is. Okay? We have that. If I want to know how many people own an even number of pets. Well, the even numbers, 0 is not an even number, even though it could be. So I would do 2, and I would hit Control, and I would hit 4, and then I would hit 8. So I've highlighted those things. If I go down here, 19.7% of the people in this survey have even number of pets. How would I do an odd number of pets? 100 minus 19.7. So it would be 81.3. 80.3, excuse me, percent own an odd number of pets. But if I'm counting 0 again, I don't know if 0 is an odd or even number. So you got to be careful how that works. How many people own between 1 and 3 pets? Well, I could do this. I could just highlight those 3, and it would say 61.4%. Or I could take 96.4. Well, here. How many people what percentage of people have 1 to 3 pets? So there's a couple ways of calculating that. I could do equal sum, and I just add the percentages together. 22, 18.1, 13.4. I don't even have to close the parentheses. I get 64%. Another way of calculating that is I could use the cumulative percent. I could say it equals this. How many people own 3 or less pets? And I could subtract from that the number of people that own 0 pets. Voila, it's the same number. So that's how you can answer those kinds of questions. All right, the next step. What is the average number of pet ownership? Well, now I want to say number of pets times frequency. Okay, well, and I probably want to wrap that text. Probably want to left justify it. So what is this going to be? 0 or equals 0 times, and times is done by the asterisk, 45. Well, 0 times anything is 0. We know that. So I bring this all the way down, and I get this. Now, if I want to find the average number of pets, let's call this average number of pets. I could, since I have these numbers, basically I have 45 times 0, that means 45 added to itself, or 0 added to itself 40 times. 38 here, which is 1 added to itself 38 times. 2 added to itself 23 times, etc. If I add all those up, sum of all this, parentheses, divided by, and then I divide it by the total, I'm going to get 1.22. Let's take it down to 1 decimal place by clicking on these zeros here. 1.2 pets. So let me make these bold. Another way of doing it is number of pets times cumulative or relative frequency. I'm going to get the same answer. What do I want to do? I want to wrap that text. I want to left justify it. And I want to say, now this is going to be equal to 0 times relative frequency. And it comes out to be 0. So if I copy this all the way down, I don't need all those decimals. Let's take all of this and make it one decimal place too. I like everything in a column to be the same number of decimal places. Now, if I just sum this up, I also get 1.2. Well, it's not surprising. The reason, if I multiply by the percentage, I've already divided each one of these by 127. So if I multiply it by these two to get this column, I have to divide the sum of that by 127 to get the average number of pets. So everybody has like a dog and 2 legs or something like that is the average number. It doesn't make sense because no one can have 1.2 dogs, but it's between 1 and 2 dogs, really much more closer to 1 is a way to interpret that. So let me put the average number of pets and merge and center. So I merge those 2 cells, and I'm going to make this bold too because it's a thing. And now my table is done. I'm done with this table. So I want to put my borders around it. I don't know why I like borders. And I'm putting borders around the part that's important. And here, as I told you before, I probably like to give a little color to it. And that's the way all my charts tend to look. Clean, crisp, nothing's dazzling or spectacular. Yay, we've done a nice job of finding the relative frequency. And if I want to make this a little bit shorter, I could probably do that. Maybe I could make it up to, well, I got to have frequency. Yeah, I think that's the best I can do. And here, I can do the same thing and close this up a little bit. And so it looks kind of clean. Everything is done. That's a survey based on 127 people. And here's the results. These columns were all raw, the input data. These columns were all calculated. All right, what's the other thing that we have to do in chapter 1 with such a table like this? Well, we have to calculate a histogram. And I said, let's calculate a histogram just based on frequency. What do I get? And if I calculate the table based on relative frequency, it's going to be the same shape, but instead of actual frequency, it's going to be relative frequency. So let me put it this way. I go to Insert. After I highlight, and I highlight the titles too, and I go to Recommended Chart, and I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to pick a histogram like that. And that gives me the frequency. So another way, if you go to Quick Layout, once you draw the chart, I like this, where it gives me the observation and it gives me the frequency of each, so I know the number. And I add the title, number of pets. And then pet ownership, number of pets owned by people, of pets owned in a survey of 127 people. Maybe it's household. So let me move this over here so we can see this. Now let's say I just click on the columns. And I want gap width. I can make it wider or I can make it smaller. If I make it smaller, now I can't see, if I just leave it alone, it's a big blob. But if I go back here and I say, let's do the edges, or let's do this, the borders, the colors, and maybe the border should be a solid line, and maybe I'll make the border white. So it depends on the kind of histogram that I want. And this is my style of doing it. I like the numbers right underneath. It gives you a table and that. Good job. If I was to do pet ownership, number of pets owned, and relative frequency, now I got to hit the control key, at least on the Mac. And now I've highlighted these two columns, and I go insert, and I do recommended chart, and I pick the same chart. Well, it gives the same look of the chart, except now if I go here and put the numbers underneath, it gives me percentages. The relative shape of the chart of the bars, the shape of the bars, the height of the bars relative to each other is not going to change, whether I do frequency or relative frequency. Okay, the other kind of chart that we want to draw is, and let me X this out, is a pie chart. So let's go back here and let's do frequency again. And I said I want to do frequency and relative frequency, which shouldn't be hard to do. I go insert, and this actual recommended chart is pretty cool. Here's a bar chart. Now, how do I want my bar chart to look? If I look at my quick layout, do I want percentages, or do I want, it gives me the number and the frequency, or I can do there. Number of pets are 0, 1, 2, 3, and it gives me bigger, and it can tell me at 0 pets I have 35%, 1 pet 30%, 2 pets 18%. Even though I did frequency, it did the calculation for me. So I could draw it that way. Which one do you like better? I don't know. It depends what you're trying to show. Pie graphs can show the relative difference in size, as do bar charts or histograms can show the relative difference in size. So this is basically the kind of stuff I want you to do in chapter 1 for the homework. And that homework is basically the problem 84. I want you to create output that looks like this, and I want you to answer the questions. Now, for some of the other questions, that you don't really need Excel to do it, so Excel may not be the best. You could do the answers in words, and you could put, like, problem number 6, and you could copy paste something from Word in here if you wanted, or create a text box and answer the questions in those, or you could do it in 2 files. One, a file for just problem 84, and then a Word file for all the other problems. I hope this helps you out and gives you an example of how to do things. In case you forget, you can come back and watch the video. I thank you very much.